I'm sure all of you have seen it by now. Governor Landry was at a press conference today, and he had a question thrown his way about the current situation involving the head coaching search for LSU football. I am just going to suggest, if you have not seen it by now, I'm sure a lot of you have seen it, go and watch the clips that a lot of people have posted about what he said. I today, right now, am just going to react to what has been said. Now, one thing is abundantly clear when it comes to the comments today by Governor Landry, the Louisiana state governor. And something that has been reported on, but not really confirmed at the current moment on how this one's being played out. One thing that we need to discuss first in all of this is that I'm pretty sure that Scott Woodward's about to get the axe. I do think that Scott, behind the scenes, has been trying to make moves of his own with Board of Supervisor members and other people politically that align with him to be able to keep his job as the athletic director of LSU because he wants to be here. Make no mistake about it. I have absolutely no ill will towards Scott Woodward. I think he's done some really good things. I think he's made some wrong moves, and even with Brian Kelly. But listen, he did sign off on Jay Johnson. It is ultimately his thing to sign off on Kim Mulkey, whether he's not fully behind it or he led it or whatever it may be. He has to sign off on these individuals getting hired. But the one thing you can't do if you're sitting AD, especially in the SEC, unless your name's Scott Strickland at the University of Florida, is hire a big name head coach, and that head coach being football, and you give him a massive contract and it fails and you got to pay a massive buyout. Now, from the way that I understand things is that the governor and Scott Woodward do not align politically. I think that we all have heard those rumors, and I think that those rumors are very true here when you talk about those things and those things playing out as they are right now. But as I said on Monday or Sunday, as I said on Monday, as I said on Tuesday, and as I'm going to say again today, guys, it has been of my opinion since the reports started coming out, Scott Woodward's getting the axe. There's going to be a new president for Louisiana State University. The Board of Supervisors votes on this on November the 4th. I think the McNeese president is someone that's in the running. Apparently the Alabama president is involved in this. There are a lot of other candidates. It would seem like the McNeese state president is, and Wade Rossi is who they're leaning towards. You're about to get a new president. But it seems to me at the current moment that Scott Woodward's days may be numbered here when it comes to him being the athletic director at LSU. I do not know and have no clue what is going on behind the scenes. I have heard a lot of rumors personally. I have called people that from my previous stops in my life and have heard some things that have been going on from a governmental level. I talked to people around LSU, and it seems like that the governor does not want Scott Woodward as the athletic director. So today, when the governor came out and stated, hey, Scott Woodward is not going to be the person who makes the next hire for LSU football. That was pretty much what we all knew. It seems to be a very massive indication that the governor does not want him in that position. There's a problem at the current moment that I might have with this. But there's also a problem that I might not have with this. Guys, Governor Jeff Landry's right in this. You can't have a massive situation with Scott Woodward fail like this and have to pay that massive amount of a buyout and questions not start being asked. I agree with him there. But I think that there's something that, listen, I've seen it. We've talked about it. It is what it is. A lot of people look at Scott Woodward and say, oh, he's the reason that A&M had to pay out Jimbo. That's just not true. Ross Bjork is the one that gave Jimbo Fisher the massive extension, and they had to pay out $75 million. It's not Scott Woodward. There was an extension that was involved. They extended Jimbo. That is on A&M. That is not on Scott Woodward. When Scott Woodward got Jimbo and brought him to A&M, he came over in 2019 back home to LSU. It was in 2020 that A&M and their new athletic director signed the extension after going, I think it was 8-1, 9-1, whatever it was. And they extended him. That's not on Scott. So when I see all of this, I do think that the actual facts of the matter, like I see Stephen A. Smith talking about it, I see ESPN talking about it, and they're wrong. Scott Woodward did not give the extension to Jimbo that ultimately made them pay out that level. Now, he did hire Jimbo Fisher. He did. And if you come out there and say, hey, listen, he hired the guy that ultimately got fired with massive buyouts. That is true, whether it's Brian Kelly or Jimbo. But the Jimbo thing, A&M didn't have to extend him the way that they extended him. They didn't have to give him the buyout that they did. That part is not on Scott. The problem is that he did hire, the last two times that he hired football coaches, it blew up in his face. Older guys that were big fish and big names. And when we talk about Scott, it's always big whale hunting, right? Who is the Moby Dick? Pause. But who is the big white whale that he's going after? It's been Brian Kelly and Jimbo Fisher. Both of them got fired. So when it comes to Scott Woodward, what makes me nervous, let's go with this first, is you're starting to break up all of this alignment that you do currently have without a sitting head coach, an active, true, non-interim sitting head coach. You don't have a president. And what I don't think that they want at the current moment, meaning the Board of Supervisors, is what they don't want is to have and be in a situation where you have no president and you have no AD. I don't think that they want that. I think they want to get a new president in and then let the president start working and Scott gets the axe. That's what I feel like is going on here. I could be massively wrong. My opinions could be wrong. That is my God's honest opinion. There's another thing that we need to throw in here and that we need to discuss. And some of you are not going to like this because you massively hate Brian Kelly right now, but it's the truth. The truth of the matter is that when things in year 2 under Brian Kelly went sideways, and it didn't really go massively sideways, but when the defense was very bad, Scott Woodward started meddling. The Blake Baker hire is not a Brian Kelly hire. It is a Scott Woodward hire, mandating who he needed to hire because of the Matt House situation. They panicked. He panicked. There are rumors that when Brian Kelly wanted to go after players such as Colin Simmons, such as DK Moore, and the NIL budget started going up, that Scott Woodward was the one, rumors, don't know if this is true, but the rumor is that Scott Woodward was the one who came out and stated, no, we ain't spending that level of money for no damn player. Ultimately, to come back and be in a situation where you hire Austin Thomas to do the exact thing. Because literally, the new age of college football had passed you by. I will tell you this. When LSU went into the spring portal for guys like Demonic Williams, for other guys in the spring portal that LSU did not land, Brian Kelly went out publicly and said, oh, we're not trying to pay players like that. That was all a lie. Look what happened last year. Look at what he said. That's not all a Brian Kelly thing. And I think from a fundamental standpoint, Brian Kelly and Austin Thomas won the debate on what they have to do in the portal and what they have to do in the NIL to Scott Woodward. That's on Scott. And if I'm Brian Kelly right now, I say to myself, and I say to anybody that will listen, hey, man, the truth of the matter was I wanted to pay these kids. He wouldn't let me. And guys, I don't know how false that is. I don't know how false that is. He did meddle. So you can hate Brian Kelly for situations where we got blown out, we didn't win big games, there were situations he made a bad house hire. I get that. I look at 2023 in a completely different light. Guys, he had 30 scholarship players. What did you want him to do? Play freshman? He had to. And he was in a situation where that internally before Alston got here, where there was a lot of dissension about going and paying players. That's the rumor. But I will tell you this, when push came to shove for DK Moore, I think I have a pretty good idea of what happened there. Actually, a really damn good idea about what happened there. I don't think Brian Kelly was given all of the options that maybe he needed. So what? Oregon may have outspent you. Texas might have been outspent you. But you're paying players now, like I look at Garrett Nussmeier. The amount of money that Garrett Nussmeier is making is far more than what those kids were asking. And you're paying it. I don't know if DK Moore or Colin Simmons has shown that they might not be better overall football players in general. You missed. I say this to say, I understand if anyone has issues with what Scott Woodward has done when it comes to football. I'm with you. Whoever gets hired as the next head coach, Scott cannot meddle anymore. If by whatever reason and for whatever reason he is retained, because I don't know, I feel like my opinion is he's going to get canned. But when I look at this entire situation in its totality, if you hire another head coach and he starts meddling again, it's not going to go over well. Sitting ADs cannot be meddling when it comes to recruiting. You got to go out there and raise the money to get really good players. You do. So whether you like NIL, whether you hate NIL, it doesn't matter. You will not go anywhere that you need to go if you don't go spend the money. Guys, people are like, well, Blake, what about Indiana? Well, you don't follow Indiana football. Like, for an example, Indiana got a $25 million donation to their football program in NIL. Newsflash, guys, where do you think they went and spent the money for and why they're doing so good? You look at Oregon. Hello. You look at Alabama. Hello. What do they all have in common, guys? What do they all have in common? They built a structure from within and paid these kids to go to school at their universities. That is the bottom line, and it is because Stone Cold said so. You can't meddle. I don't know who would replace Scott Woodward. I think that there are sitting ADs out there. He's not even fired, so I'm not even going to entertain that. But it does seem like that Jeff Landry wants Scott Woodward out. That seems very apparent to me. They didn't even involve him, per reports, in the situation with Brian Kelly. That goes to tell you who has the current power at the current moment. It's why Scott Woodward and President Tate were aligned the way that they were, because Scott knew how the political juice was squeezed and what he needed to do. Because I don't think William Tate just up in one day said to himself, oh man, Rutgers looks a lot better than LSU. I don't think that he said that. By the way, took Kelly Zinn with him. So it should tell you how aligned Scott Woodward and, quite honestly, William Tate were. But we need to get to some of these other things too that was said today. So I say that all to say about I think he's going to be fired. I don't want to wish for anybody to be fired. But the meddling, if he is retained, has got to stop. And I do think that there's a worry that if he's here and a new coach is here, that could be a toxic situation in and of itself. Now, the good news about if he is retained, guys, he has no power. And I will tell you this. I don't think every coach on that campus is in love with Scott Woodward at the current moment. I think that when you look, if you inserted truth serum in every one of these head coaches, they're not fans of Scott Woodward right now, mainly due to the way that he reacted to the TV revenue stuff. The way that he tried to and aligned with William Tate on a new arena for men's basketball and women's basketball. The amount of money that they were given, when quite honestly, guys, women's basketball, great. What has men's basketball shown that they should be giving it when Jay Johnson's having to fight for scraps? Got to be real with you guys. The truth of the matter is LSU baseball brings more eyes right now than men's basketball. It does. I do think Scott's days are numbered. I know. Let me say one final thing on this. So who's in charge? The governor, the board of supervisors. I mean, that's who's in charge in this. So as we move on, Governor Jeff Landry today said that Scott Woodward will not be making the hire, that the board of supervisors will. He did emphasize he will not be making the next hire of the LSU head coach. I don't believe that. And I do believe that. Meaning, I don't believe that he's going to be involved in the day-to-day stuff that goes on with hiring the next coach. I don't really think that he cares on who the real next head coach is. I don't. Now, I do think that he would love the political win. I think that he would love the political win if he goes for broke and gets a massive coach that all of you want. Meaning if he gets a Lane Kiffin, if he gets a Dan Lanning, that's not happening. But if he gets one of those type of guys, it would be a political home run for him. And I do think that he is going to have a say to the lead board of supervisors on how this goes in Scott Ballard. I do. I think he's going to have a massive say. I also think that he's going to have a massive say when it comes to how the contracts are broken down. Meaning, I do think based off of what he said today and how he talked about buyouts and that these buyouts are ridiculous and that we need to, and per his words, there needs to be incentive-based stuff here. Well, guys, I mean, I pretty much understand what he's trying to say on how they're trying to get the next head coach and how they're trying to structure it. They're trying to get a coach here for small guaranteed money with massive amount of incentives. I don't hate that model. I don't know if that model works. Because the only real coach that it's worked with at the current moment, which technically hasn't worked yet, is Mike Elko. I don't know if you can get a guy like Lane Kiffin for the model of what the board of supervisors is about to put out there with. I don't think that we are in a world where I think that if you're going to go get a Lane Kiffin, you better raise that guaranteed money. Which leads me to my next point. Governor Jeff Landry called out Jimmy Sexton and called out Trace Armstrong. He got his facts mixed up on about agents and all of that. But what he said is true. There is one thing that he said. These buyouts are ridiculous. But if massive billionaire donors, which is his words, want to pay Brian Kelly's buyout, what is it to him? What is it to him? If a billionaire wants to give a shitload of money and wants to give a shitload of money to the school to buy Brian Kelly out, it wants to give a shitload of money to NIL, wants to give a shitload of money to buy a coach to come to LSU, what is it to him? Why does that matter? Because it's that person's money on what they want to spend it on, which makes your institution greater. The lead institution in this state, greater. But the truth of the matter is, guys, I'm worried about this entire situation. I don't think you can get a Lane Kiffin if you don't boost that guaranteed money. I don't. I legitimately don't. And with all the things that were said today, Scott Woodward's not making the hire. We don't have a president. We think these buyouts are stupid, and calling out the agents. Does Jimmy Sexton, who has 2/3 of this market, does Trace Armstrong, who has the other third of the market, why would they want to put you in that situation? Now, there is a caveat that I was told by people in some circles. Blake, what head coach wouldn't want to come and have the backing of the governor so that he can get a limited amount of money, because this has got to work for unlimited amount of money, because this has got to work for him. It's got to work. The people on the board of supervisors who are going to be making this hire, he's going to have to get a lot of money for NIL because they need this to work. And I understand that. But that's not how they're seeing it right now. Guys, coaches want alignment. So what terrifies me at the current moment is when the agents are getting called out, when coaches see the dysfunction and non-alignment, and they see that a coach just got paid $53 million in a buyout, and they ask themselves, well, number one, what are they paying me? They want incentives when Florida is over here offering me $30 million more guaranteed. Are you 1,000% sure that a guy like a Lane Kiffin or whomstever is going to look at that and say, I'm going to walk away from $30 million guaranteed? They're not going to do that. And I will say, I have no idea what Lane Kiffin thinks about money or whatever. I know he said the statements on Pat McAfee, but those are levels of concerns. Because these guys want to know who their bosses are. They want to know how much money they have for a roster. They want to know who their GM is, which I arguably think that you have the best in the country in Austin Thomas. But they want alignment because they don't want to go to a program where everything is a lame duck and they can't get anything done. And it all comes down and they fall flat on their face. How much money do I have for staff? Can I get a really good staff in here when you're limiting me to money? Now, Governor Jeff Landry came out today and said, well, this is on the taxpayers. It's really not. It's on the private donors that are going to go out there and give the level of money for this. LSU is a business. They go and get donorship. Now, some of the things in state money is used for LSU athletics. We all know that. But when you go make big moves like this, it's mainly due to the fact that you have massive boosters that are giving large chunks of money as how it works. So I don't even know, if they understand how it works themselves. Guys, this terrifies me. It really does. It terrifies me in so many levels. Now, could this all work out? Sure, you could give an incentive-based contract to a guy like John Summerall, which that politically has its own problems. You can give an incentive deal to a guy like Alex Golish. Maybe Eli Drinkowitz sees that and says, hey, man, that sounds good to me. All of that could work out. But are you going to alligator arm yourself if Lane Kiffin knocks on the door and says, hey, guys, I want in? That guaranteed money's got to go up, though, or I'm going to Florida. What are you going to do? And does Jeff Landry, does the board of supervisors say, okay, well, go take that job? That's where we currently sit. You know, I think of another hypothetical that is very much a massive hypothetical that may never happen. What if Nick Saban knocks on the door and says, hey, I got the itch again and I want back in? What are you willing to pay him? What are you willing to pay him? I don't mind a young, energetic coach like Lane Kiffin. And if Nick Saban wants back in, with all due respect, you got to give it a shot, right? But Scott Ballard is the lead chair for the Board of Supervisors. I wonder where he wants to go in this one. And you're going to have to get a majority vote on who your next head coach is going to be. With an AD, you got one decision. And I know that they got to get the approval of the Board of Supervisors. I understand that. But what if all the board of supervisors who are aligned politically one way and aligned politically the other way, they start fighting and you miss out on a great opportunity because of it? Because, guys, here's the truth. If Lane Kiffin comes in here and says, listen, I want a 7-year, $10 million a year contract, hello. Does LSU have the level of money to give to be able to build a roster that's a championship quality roster? And before you say, well, Blake, Ole Miss didn't do it, guys, yes, they did. They have 2 players on their team right now that are getting a large chunk of change that were on your team a season ago. Don't tell me they're not. They are. You see Ole Miss and see poor. I see Ole Miss and say, guys, they're spending about $15 to $20 million in NIL money just like you are, because they are. Newsflash, Peter Pan. I want Lane Kiffin personally. I don't think Jimmy Sexton will ever back down in reference to a lower guarantee and more incentives for a coach that has already proven that he can win in the SEC. So what do you do? And I start asking the question of this. What if Auburn gets involved here? What if Florida State gets involved here? You have Arkansas that's already involved. You have Penn State, who's got a $5 billion endowment. Yeah, they got money. What if they want the same head coach that you do? What if Florida says we want Lane Kiffin and we will pay that guaranteed money? What do you do now? You better pray to God that you hit on a right head coach and that they can hire the right staff and that you have enough money for players. And I'm not saying that it won't happen and that it can't happen, because it clearly can. It clearly can. The team that just kicked your teeth in, it clearly can work. Here's the problem with that. Everybody was aligned. So when I look at A&M and you say, well, Blake, Mike Elko, it worked for them. He was still a sitting head coach at a P4 school. But here was the difference with A&M. They got a $75 million donation to their athletic department to pay out Jimbo. They raised more money to go give him NIL and the players that he needed in year 2 to do what he's doing. They went out and got arguably one of, if not the best strength coach in the country. They were all aligned on what needed to be successful. Right now, you might have too many hands in the cookie jar. Who's got the hands in the cookie jar? I have my hands in the cookie jar. So if the board of supervisors, if the governor, if Austin Thomas, whoever it is that's going to ultimately make the decision, number one, as I told you last night, Football Scoop was wrong. Because the board of supervisors is going to run this. And I don't know what any of them are thinking, because they all want to be the ones that are going to say to themselves, I'm the one that hired this guy. Jeff Landry says, I'm not going to be the one picking. And I ask myself the God's honest question. Well, then who is? Because nobody, you can say board of supervisors all you want to. You need one voice that's sitting down with, who's it going to be? Jimmy Sexton. You don't have another way around it. I am absolutely terrified about where we sit. And I think when you look at this from a national perspective, Brian Kelly is sitting on the beach right now laughing his ass off. He's sitting on the beach right now laughing his ass off. So you mean to tell me that I'm going to get paid $53 million and everyone nationally is laughing at LSU? Boy, this looks great. And it might all work out for you. Everything may work out. We are in a new age of college football. You don't have a sitting AD that has any stroke or power to do anything of relevance. Because if Scott Woodward went to any head coach that is currently on staff at LSU, they're going to laugh at him and say, yeah, either number one, fire me, you can't, And number two, I'm going to go to the Board of Supervisors and tell you to go kick rocks because you're out of here. Talk and listen to any head coach or any coach in college football. They all mean it when they say it. Guys, we must have alignment. When Texas A&M last year was holding $50,000 a plate dinners for Mike Elko for NIL, he went to every one of them. He socialized with everybody, even though he's a massive introvert. Do you sit in a bad spot? I don't know how to feel about this, and I'm not trying to call out Governor Landry. But I'm not calling out Governor Landry. What I'm saying here is no, I don't want really Scott Woodward making the hire. Well, Blake, who else would make it? I don't know. I don't know. There is somebody in that building that I would trust to make the hire, and that is Austin Thomas. That is Austin Thomas. And here's the truth for the future of your program. Whoever leads it, whoever the next head coach is, regardless of what happens, there's one thing LSU's got to do to make sure that this is successful. Whether it be Ty Graves, other billionaires, people with multi-millions of dollars, how much do you love LSU? Because when that next head coach walks to that podium and you have a celebration for him and he's going to sweep you off your feet because you're in love with your new head coach, none of it matters. There's two massive things that matter. Number one, are you all aligned? Can you raise the money? And number two, who is his staff? That is it. You got to go for broke. You don't have a choice. I don't like Governor Landry's comments about the buyout thing. He could have worded it differently and not taken shots at Jimmy Sexton, because the bottom line truth is that is going to scare off a lot of coaches. The only other caveat to that would be, well, Blake, if he chooses us, then we're his choice. And politically speaking, he's going to have to back us. He very well may. He very well may. But today was just not a good look for LSU football. All the governor had to say in this, and he brought the president into it, and I'm not going there. All he had to say was the Board of Supervisors is going to make the decision. I have advised them that I don't think Scott Woodward should make it, and we're going to go from there. I'm not going to be involved other than I think that Scott Woodward did something very irresponsible, and we take it from there. Because they had a meeting at the governor's mansion. The Board of Supervisors, per Ross Dellinger, had a meeting at the governor's mansion, and then Brian Kelly got fired. So you can tell people that you're not going to have any involvement. You just had involvement in Brian Kelly being fired. So no one believes that. And if you believe it, well, I don't know. I hope Austin Thomas's words are very well taken, and people look at this situation and say to themselves, maybe Austin, who has the connections, is able to get us over that hump. I don't know.